Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nemeko Abiariri. I just saw the news clip about what the Minister for Agriculture said. He said and he claimed that one of the major reasons why we have food insecurity in Nigeria is because of smuggling of foods, commodities. No, sir. We have food insecurity in Nigeria not because of smuggled foods. It's because of insecurity and government's purposeless and directionless approach to productivity and mechanized agriculture in Nigeria in a very scientific way. Let me address this. As much as possible, try to explain this in layman's parlance in a way we will understand. The law of demand and supply is a very simple law, that the basic law of economics, that the first thing that an economic student learns, economics 101. Once there is a supply of a particular commodity, goods, services in higher quantity than the demand, prices will either remain stable or prices will crash. When there is more demand for a particular kind of services, goods and commodities than the suppliers of such commodities, goods and services, the price will always spike up. Basically what we have in Nigeria today is the demand is actually far more outstrip the domestic supply. And the domestic supply is mostly aggravated and affected. The paucity of domestic supply is mostly aggravated and affected by insecurity and government lack of purposeful scientific approach to productivity and the whole agro value chain development. And the same mismatch and the same purposelessness is seen across both the fiscal and monetary policy end of Nigerian market. Okay, recently now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, in their wisdom, they are trying to tackle inflation by deploying mostly monetary policy tools and instruments, whereas the fiscal managers, the governors, the presidency and the National Assembly and the local government area are practically not doing anything in terms of emergency or in terms of the Marshall Plan that they've declared to tackle insecurity, which is at the root of the problem, and to scientifically roll out an integrated agro-development approach across the value chain, for us to have bumper productivity even within this Agric season. Look at the Central Bank of Nigeria monetary policy rate at 22.75%. At a time inflation is almost at 30%. And I hear people argue, they want to attract foreign forex. Foreign portfolio investors will come in. Of course, the foreign portfolio investors that will come in are actually coming in to just play short in the market, make the much they can make and get out of the market without staying long in this market. Because Nigeria is the first place where I see the risk-free government rate is far below inflation rate. Go to look at America. The 10-year risk-free rate of America is at about 4.13%. The inflation rate is about 3.06%. Singapore, inflation is about 2.5 to 3%. Risk-free 10-year yield, their bond yield, is about 3.06%. Even look at South Africa. Inflation rate is at about 6%. Risk-free 10-year government security is at 10%. UK, the same thing. Inflation rate is at about 4%. Then risk-free government bond is about 5.12%. Check any other economy, because the risk-free rate is actually the rate that encapsulates every risk and is the base risk upon which every other private sector lender, every other lender will now price what they lend to the private sector. But in Nigeria, there is so much mismatch. You don't tackle inflation using only monetary policy instruments, because the inflation we have in Nigeria are driven by critical factors. Agro-inflation, inflation from energy cost, because most of the refined product that we consume here, including mineral oil that we spend $24 billion to import, are imported abroad. And of course, we have seen total devaluation of our currency from 430, 460 naira in May 2023 to about 1,650 today. So that gap is what have added to the inflation. Of course, practically most of the things that we consume here, we import them. One of the surest ways to tackle inflation is to enhance productivity across all the key and critical sectors of Nigeria in such ways that our massive demand will be lower than the supply. I give you an example, palm oil. Of course, that one will take longer time. Nigeria controlled 45% of the global palm oil market in 1965. Today, that market is $72 billion sized. Our consumption is 1.4 million tons. Our consumption is 2.4 million tons. Our domestic production is 1.48 million tons. So there's a gap of about 1 million tons that we need to domestically produce here. And in fact, if we're able to project our population growth, we need to ramp up output in that sector alone to about 3 million tons of palm oil value chain over the next 3 to 4 years. What scientific, integrated, harmonized approach are the federal government of Nigeria working with the state and local government putting together to develop over the next 2-3 years over 500,000 hectares of the Terra palm plantation and 1,740 cottage factories that has capacity of each doing 20,000 liters of the palm value chain per day over the next 2 years. This is what governments, the NEC, the federal government, the presidency meets with the governors and some key stakeholders practically every month or whatever timeline they call NEC meeting. Today discuss these things. And for us to even enhance productivity in the agri sector, there are certain things we need to do. We need to quickly amend the Land Use Act so that the ease of transferring land assets will be made less cumbersome. And even land assets can be used as veritable collateral for agric production. Because one of the key factors of production is land. Human capital and land are the most critical. Not even money, not even equipment and machineries. But what are we doing to amend land? Nobody's talking about that one. You talked about crude oil production. We spent $24 billion worth of crude. The current NNPC GMD told the National Assembly sitting last year that by January, Port Harcourt refinery will come fully on stream, 2024. By March, Warri will be fully on stream. This is March 6th, 2024. I'm sure the members of the National Assembly never even remembered that such undertaking was made before them. Now, for 24 whole years, we have wasted 16 trillion naira on turnaround maintenance program that failed, plus subsidy losses and all manner of things. And yet, we are yet to fix those refineries. 34 billion wasted. We've wasted over the last 5 years, we've lost over $100 billion on crude oil thefts and inefficiencies. Our output depleted from 2.6 million barrels a day, crude oil and condensate in 2011 to where it is today. What are we doing to ramp up output incrementally? It's even shocking when we hear them say, oh, we will produce 1.7 million barrels in the next 5 years. We will attract investment of $17 billion in 5 years. That is abysmally and atrociously low. Nigeria has the potentials with the volume of diasporans we have. If we put in place the right management and ownership structure at the NNPC and across the oil value chain, we have the capacity to create diaspora bonds that will net in nothing less than $20 billion, $30 billion annually to pursue deepening investment across the value chain of the oil and gas sector in such a way that we will be able to produce enough crude and enough forex, refine massively a lot of things in Nigeria in such a way that will make so much money and cut the $24 billion that will waste. What are we doing scientifically in this regard? What are we doing to diversify ownership of the NNPC? Get the federal government to divest 55% of their shareholding in NNPC and allow private sector investors to come in there, take it, let it become more efficient, more transparently run, obeying the laws of corporate governance culture, just like the Nigeria liquefied natural gas. What are we doing? Security. We know that security is at the bedrock of the problem we are having. It's at the root of the problem we are having, the root of unproductivity. Most of us are not going to their farms. Over the last 8 years, we squandered $27 billion fighting insecurity. Yet insecurity has festered and moved from the northeast to other parts of Nigeria. Since we understand clearly that the current security architecture of Nigeria since 1999 has not worked, why not us revert back to the security architecture that we had in 1960 to 1966, devolving more power and authority to the communities? I just read yesterday, just today, that criminal terrorist herdsmen went into a village in Benue State, killed 10 people, and wiped a family of 7. Then, have you closed your eyes and imagine if these communities, if we have a community-based security arrangement where people are trained, properly equipped, give them communication gadgets, and they work with the military, that they will be able to protect themselves, that they will be the first responder if there was any attack. But yet we know that the current security architecture has failed, riddled with corruption and inefficiency. Yet we have refused to devolve and decentralize it in such a way that will give the people who understands who has the motivation to protect themselves, the power and the right to protect themselves. We do not have the right investment in agriculture. We kept on wasting money. We spent 10 trillion naira over the last 8 years on interventions from the CBN, the humanitarian affairs, that had zero impact. Can't we look at it the way it is done in other climes? In the US, some of the best agro credit banks are owned by cooperatives, and they borrow money at risk-free rate of the American federal government, who just provide guarantees. Can't we have an arrangement where the states working with the federal government will set up Agric credit agencies, Agric credit banks, development funds in their states? Farmers will be the ones that will aggregate themselves into cooperative. For example, in Niger State or Imo State, cocoa farmers, aggregate yourself. Rice farmers, aggregate yourself in cooperatives. Cassava farmers, garri producers, aggregate yourself. Rice farmers, aggregate yourself. Palm oil farmers, aggregate yourself. Tomato farmers, aggregate yourself. These guys will put themselves into cooperatives. Trainings are provided. The right agro practice, the right mechanized equipment under PPP framework are provided. The right seedlings provided. Offtake provided using commodity boards. The right credit goes to the right farmers in the field, not where people, all manner of names are put into the list who are not farmers. The farmers know themselves, they aggregate themselves, they have cooperatives, they counter guarantee each other. In fact, when they are applying for credits under such agri-credit arrangement in the states and the federal government level, they will be the ones that will assess the credit of their members first before bringing it to the credit bank. Agri-credit bank. It is similar thing that is done in different places of the world. We have Bank of Agriculture doing nothing. The structure, Nigeria, it's high time we diversify and we restructure the constitutional, the physical, the resource production and control framework of Nigeria back to the 1963 structure. It will encourage the constituent units. It will encourage the regions and the states to look inward. We have a centralized way of, we want to give gold oil mining license or OPL license. We bring in some of the best. We give them farmers acreage of land. They will go and prospect. Monies are shares to the federation account. Yet we have massive gold fields in the north. Even in Osun State, we have gold lithium fields. Why are we not adopting the same process? For example, invite a Barite Gold, that is one of the best gold processing companies, that does over $10 billion turnover annually, and farm out the gold fields under such arrangement. People are mining our gold, mining our lithium, mining our precious metals, flying them out in the night, creating insecurity everywhere, and we seem not to understand what is happening here. The process fly out and don't come into Nigeria. We can build up this country, but we need to build up productivity. The greatest way to fight inflation, the greatest way to fight forex instability, the greatest way to fight insecurity is to put the over 120 million Nigerians into productive work by decentralizing and divesting and restructuring this whole constitutional, physical, and security architecture. That is a foundational problem. Increasing NPR at 22.75% when inflation is at 9%. Anybody, see, let me tell you, any Nigerian that is investing either in the federal government savings bond or in the TVs or whatever is actually losing money, because inflation today is 29.9%. The risk-free rate is 22.75%. So actually, you're losing money. And from what we are seeing, inflation may not yet come down. Mr. Minister for Agriculture, it is not smuggling that have caused food insecurity. It's the unproductive nature of Nigeria, occasioned by the fraudulent constitutional and physical structure that we currently run, that engenders laziness, that engenders criminality, that engenders unproductivity. We cannot continue to throw around money under what we call conditional cash transfer that does not add a jot to our GDP in the real terms. Let us advise ourselves. We have been doing this since 2025, living this Almajiri Babiala governance, dashing people money anyhow. That's practically Almajiri way of treating people. Nigerians are not Almajiri. We have people who are ready to work. Let us put in place the right structures, the right institutional framework, the right constitutional arrangement, the right physical arrangement that will put Nigeria back to work. Productivity that will lead to consumption that is lower than what we produce. When we can produce most of the basic things, take for instance, I just did now, there's geometric power. Any smart importer now, what they'll be thinking, there is power. What is actually trying to do industrial clusters at Owaza and other areas. Any smart importer will look at those basic things that they import from China and see if they can bring those Chinese companies to come to Aba to set up a factory under a co-owned arrangement. Now you have regular power supply, you are cheap labor, and there is going to be industrial areas that will have gas and other shared facilities. So rather than going to China to import most of those basic things, plastics and those things that you can do here, we can bring those factories here in Nigeria. They will set up in Aba areas where you have regular power and shared facilities, and you will take over Nigeria and West African market. But we also need government support in other areas. We expect the Federal Ministry of Commerce and the Trade and Investment, the state, to work with the private sector group, like some of the arrangements that we have put in place, to bring in artisans, MSMEs, document them, provide training, provide finances, put them in cooperative, set up clusters of funds for each sector. These things are not skyrocket science. This country ticks the right boxes to become a top 10 economy in the whole world over the next 10 years if we do the right things. Thank you and God bless you. Share. Thank you.